So, hi everyone, I'm Mary. I'm editor-in-chief of the Princeton newspaper.
I'm Eleanor. I'm the managing editor of Princeton.
And tonight we'll be mediating the events just so it's as unbiased as possible. So up first are going to be the Senate candidates, and they all got one pre-announced question that we'll go around and have them answer. So that question is, what is the most important quality or attribute you feel you could add to SGA? And then also when you stand up, you can introduce yourself and say your name, where you're from.
They have 30 seconds to either, at which I'll call track. Okay. So who would like to go first? Goes running.
You want to just call down?
Check. Any Senate candidate that wants to participate in the debate, you can go down to the front
Okay, we can start on this end over here. And again, the question is, what is the most important quality or attribute you feel you could add to SGA?
Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Cheslow. I'm a physics major, freshman first year here. I'm originally from Smithville, Pennsylvania. I think that the most important thing that I can add to SGA is the drive for leadership, not only within the organization, within the executive positions, but throughout the entire campus. I think that true leaders do not only lead people, but they build other leaders up. They find the true leaders within the campus, and they build them up to be able to hold these positions, whether in other organizations or so.
Hi guys, I'm Mitchell Spalding. I'm a sophomore in aviation management. The one thing I want to see change in the SGA is I want to see more sustainability programs, working with Sustainability Club in the major and minor to see more change on campus and reduce the footprint that campus has on the environment in Melbourne and itself. That's the policy I want to see change. That's it.
Hello, my name's Paul Arbic. I'm a mathematical sciences major. I'm a junior here at FIT, obviously. And if I'm elected as your demagogue, in true political fashion, I will bring a wave of corruption and incompetence upon this entire administration. Just like my political predecessors before. So if that's what you want, then vote for me.
Hi everyone, I'm Chanel Lotion. I'm a biomedical engineer and I'm a freshman here at FIT, honestly. I believe that determination and optimism are key aspects that you have to have if you want to be in SGA, to be able to identify what problems are and how to solve them. And I would like to believe that I possess those qualities and I can contribute greatly to SGA in the future. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Samara Gallion. I'm a freshman in forensic psychology. Being an SGA, I think that communication is one of the biggest attributes to have, and just like being well-versed in that is one of the biggest things to have with students. I think that as long as we can communicate well with you guys, that we'll have a good relationship and keep everything going.
Okay, hi, I'm India Cornish. I'm a freshman, astrobiology major. And I think one of my best qualities that I can bring to SGA is just project completion. Like, I'm a perfectionist. I like to see things done. I like to see them finished efficiently, quickly, and I want other people to like what I put out for them to see. So that's what I can bring to you guys, is making sure that when we start something, we get it done.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm the ocean engineer and I'm a freshman. And I believe that you have to have a voice and say what other people want to hear and bring it to SGA.
Just gotta watch where you step. Yeah, we're working on it. Got it? That got
So nobody else is running for treasurer except little old me. So if you guys, I'm Tori. I'm currently the treasurer of SGA, if you don't already know. I'm a junior in civil engineering. Before being treasurer, I was a senator in SGA. So I'd like you to vote for me. If you really don't want to do that, there is a write-in option. I've heard Kanye West is an option. But I don't want to take up time from the debating candidates to debate myself and answer a bunch of questions. So if you guys have any questions about me or what I think about SGA or how I want to improve things, please feel free to shoot me an email.
Up next is our vice president. We'll start on this end, and the first question will be the pre-announced question you guys got in advance, which was how to work with assistance with the president of SGA to implement your ideas and the ones of the student body.
You guys have 90 seconds to respond.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tina. I'm a junior in forensic psychology. I think the main criticism that SGA has been getting is that students are getting emails and voting on things that they're not informed about. So my running mate and I, Bailey, want to make sure that you guys are making informed decisions. So we want to stress the need for press releases before these surveys. And then after the surveys are conducted, we want to ensure that our department heads are taking these responses and forming them into goals and actions rather than just getting your opinions and then having nothing happen or having you guys be mad at us because you didn't know what was happening. So we want to make sure that we really get the information out there.
All right, my name is Colton Flaherty. I'm a sophomore in psychology, and I see the biggest criticism with SGA is that it seems pretty disconnected from the views and the needs of the students, like the student body. And I think the biggest thing that we can do in order to help make sure that it's more representative is to facilitate the dialogue between student government and the student body. And I think I could work well with a president just because I don't have a running mate. So if I'm voted, I would basically have the mindset to work with anyone who gets the job.
Hi guys, my name is Zach Eichels. I'm a second year master's student studying interdisciplinary sciences. I've been here a long time. I've been here since 2011. I've been in the Department of Residence Life since 2012. And through my experience in the Department of Residence Life, I've made a lot of friends in a lot of departments. I have a working relationship with the administration, facilities, security, campus services, and I feel like I can help my running mate, Jace here, who's a sophomore, really understand what needs to be done through these departments, through the students, and really, kind of like what they said, more outreach, both with students on campus and with organizations off campus, local government, things like that I think SGA should bring in. to kind of facilitate what it wants to do as a body, it educates about voting and elections and things like that.
And then we have 3 more questions that are not pre-announced, so the candidates did not know them beforehand. So the first question, why are you applying for this specific position in SGA?
Okay, so I spent this last year as a SGA senator, and I think that was really great experience and super advantageous to me in this position that I'm running for. Because as a senator, we do have power to vote on things, but we don't have the power that the president and vice president have to change things. So that's why I want to run for this position. I want to make a change. I don't want to just be one of the senators voting for something. And I think that a lot of the times as senators, they follow what the vice president and president want them to do. So it's more of a yes voting than challenging ideas. And I want to make sure that our Senate is always challenging each other and making an informed decision.
The reason I picked this position is because I sort of noticed when I was coming to these meetings that there's a lack of solidarity when it comes to SGA. For example, like with the Green Fund bill, the people who signed it would be sitting down and try to take the brute of sort of the questions and criticisms of it. And I think that we should act as more of a unit in order for us to get more effective policies passed and more representative ones.
I'm running for this position because I really want to see SGA become more of a team. Through my experience with Residence Life, I've helped build multiple teams for multiple years, trained a lot of people, responsible for a staff of 9, directly and indirectly of 60. Have developed training programs for them. So I'd really like to bring teamwork, and like I said in the previous question, I have a lot of experience working with this campus with a lot of different people, influential people. I really want to help Jace do that because I'm only going to be here for another year, but Jace is going to be here for another 2 years, and I'd like to see some continuity in SGA over the years, so Jace can really take what has happened so far. I think SGA has had a really transformative year, for better or for worse, which brought a lot of student attention to SGA, which is a good thing. So that's why I really want to run.
Next question. If you are not elected, will or how will you remain a part of SGA? Let's start with Jack so we can.
Sure. Well, I don't think it's a secret. I was one of the authors of the Green Bill. Yep, that's me. But I would definitely like to see that continue. I know it's not perfect. I know the way it came about was also not perfect. I'd like to see that become more efficient in the way that happens, not just with that bill, but with future bills, whatever those may be. Really, I would, like I said, just like to stick with that and see that to completion, because I feel like that is something that could, if done right, could definitely make a difference on this campus. And I'd like to leave that knowing that happens here. I think we have a responsibility to live beyond our time, and I'd like Florida Tech to become greater than I found it. So I'd like to be involved with that and future projects. I'd like Residence Life to be more involved.
All right, awesome. So one reason that I'll still be working with SGA is partly because of my standing position as president of the Honor Society Kappa Theta Epsilon. But one main reason outside of that I will still work with SGA is because I believe in the power of student voice, and I'm not one to back away from, like, say, criticizing things that are a bit strange and like off-putting. And so I think that it's more important to empower people and to inform them of what's going on with SGA, because not too many people really understand some of the things that were going on with, say, the Green Bill or like what have you with this, because it's sort of a small amount of people who come to these meetings and then they have to reiterate onto what happened.
If I don't receive this position, when I was interviewing to be a senator, I was actually told about the position of justice as well. So if I don't receive this position, I'd be really interested in that as well, just to make sure that we keep SGA going in the right direction and that rules are being followed and everything is in place.
Okay. And one last question for our vice president candidates. How are you most qualified for this position and to lead the Senate? Let's start in the middle.
Awesome. So I think I'm very qualified for this position because I've sort of been in a position of leadership back in Boston when I worked for the Youth Ambassadors, which was a nonprofit advocating sort of the issues of the youth, and I have skills with facilitation and sort of like peer mentoring. So with the vice president, the main objective of that is to sort of ensure like the senators like sort of act in togetherness with SGA and the current administration. So I kind of just want to stress my abilities of facilitation and group work.
That way. This one, okay. Like I said in the previous question, I've been working with people for a long time, mostly through residence life, training their staff, looking after staff as a resident director of the quad for the last 2 years. I've worked at Satellite Beach in local government and trying to understand how things go on there. I wrote their sustainability plan, so I helped them to do that. I've always been one to never back down from the challenge and trying to make things better. So I definitely like to see the group's professionalism and efficiency increase. That's something I'd like to facilitate that happening. I think I would just be able to do that with it and pull from the experience I've had over the years here since I came in 2001 or something. Really old, guys.
In addition to my leadership positions as Vice President of the Pre-Law Society and Secretary of Phi Sigma, I think what makes me different is that I do have experience as a senator. SGA is one of those organizations that is so different than any other organization. There are so many moving parts. You're not just focused on one group of people, you're focused on the entire student body. So I won't have to go through that learning curve of figuring out how all this works, and I can hit the ground running as soon as we start our term.
Questions to the audience. If the audience has any questions they'd like to ask the candidate. In the back.
So, last semester during the infamous impeachment, it was said by many members of the student body, I don't care, what does SGA do? Other people don't know what we do and what we care. So how do you plan to change that?
All candidates.
Okay, so I think changing SGA's image from what's happened this year can start really with the freshmen and start the culture building down there with them. That could come in at the start of the orientation week. I think there needs to be more things done during orientation week with SGA. And also actually with FYE. I was an FYE director last semester, and I think they do facilitation programs with a lot of organizations on campus, civic engagement, sports, stuff like that. And I think if we had an FYE program that involved some cooperation between SGA and those classes, which are freshman based, it would really help. And then, I guess it did.
So I think with the impeachment, it actually did help increase sort of the awareness of SGA because people are like, what is the significance of this? I don't think a lot of people were like, I don't care, because you saw sort of the rise of like the hashtag like not my SGA and all that, even though I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, so one way we could do this is, like Zach said previously, is to sort of orient the freshmen sort of towards understanding student government. I think also sort of increasing awareness of effective policy could also help understand like how well people know SGA.
I think we need to increase awareness about what SGA really is, and that's a liaison between the students and the administration. I think that a lot of times we get so caught up in certain initiatives that are going on in politics and everything that we don't really remember that we're here for you. And I think we need to make SGA a super open environment so that you guys can come to us. And if you have a problem with anything in your college life, that's what we're here for. So I think raising awareness of that, in addition to giving out press releases before all of these surveys so that you guys know what's happening and you guys always have conversations with us, would be really important.
Good evening, everybody. During the vote on the Green Fund bill, it was very interesting to see how there was a lot of negative attention directed towards SGA, and there was a very big backlash with people saying that SGA is going out of their bounds of power, and it made people think that, it made just the people I talked to think that the SGA is like a governing body over the students rather than a voice. What would you, as candidates, do to prevent that from happening and really reinforce the idea that the SGA is for the students and not just looking over them?
I really think, once again, the main problem is communication. I really think that because that vote was sent out and people didn't have all the information, they didn't even know what exactly they were voting on, if your money was going to be taken, if you're going to take it from somewhere else, if it was a recommendation, if it was a vote. I think we really need to focus on getting out press releases, like I said before, and I think that will definitely fix what went on this semester.
So I kind of was one of those voices that were very negative towards it. And so one thing that I think would help increase that is that the basis of the Greenland Bill was on a survey that only 394 students, I believe, took. So I think sort of with greater policy, we can't simply just base it off of very small surveys, and that it needs to be as campus-wide as the vote of the Green Bill itself.
I think, kind of like what they said, there needs to be more information, definitely. But I think SGA needs to have more of a presence on the ground, so to speak, in the sense of there needs to be more outreach where I can literally see the senators that are supposed to be representing me as a student, where there's more tabling, there's more literally people just standing maybe at the CB bridge, intercepting students, talking to them about what it is, what's going to happen, why is it important, things like that. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
So there's a common theme between all three of you of more information needs to be given out to the student body and they need to be more informed. But currently what SGA does with information, we send out, for certain things we have sent out multiple emails, put it on work saying, we've tabled information for one specific piece of information to give them, let's say about the student services fee. And I still have students coming up to me saying, did you guys ever figure out where the money's going? And there were multiple emails, information put on work saying, sent emails to all the organizations, tabled. So what more would you do to throw that information? And mind you, we don't have the manpower, about 25 people to do this.
I think that starts with a general change in how people perceive the organization, because I don't think that people are really in tune with what's going on, and I think that starts, like I said earlier, from the bottom with the freshmen and work way up from there. I think that if you were to change the culture of how people perceive SGA, because right now I feel like if you saw an SGA email, you'd probably be more inclined to delete it than you would not, honestly, or to read it. But and I think that can change with SGA doing more of literally showing that it's government. This is what we do, and you can pull in local governments and bring them here, talk about that, really give people, show SGA in a positive light for change.
So I think with basically the distribution, I think it needs to be more centralized. So if the information was say on a official not W, but FIT website, that would probably be a good thing, because the mailing list, there's a population of students who are unsubscribed to the mailing list. There's a population of students who can't make sort of these tablings. And so I think if there was just one centralized place where we could access information about SGA and current events and sort of make that aware, I think that could help sort of muddle the confusion a little bit.
There may be a new addition of press secretary to the cabinet, and that will really be a main player for us. I think the most important part of the information being sent out is that it's concise and that it's not all sprawled out of you getting 5 emails about the same thing, because you're not going to read all of them. And it's typically sent out after backlash, after the initial information that's sent out, because maybe you just didn't want to read all of those 5-10 pages that were sent. So I think the key is having someone who's focused on getting that concise, informative information out to you guys.
questions?
Alright, so what problem, if any, do you see as the largest in regards to the SGA Constitution?
So I think one of the biggest problems is that sort of the SAFC, the Student Funding Committee, basically is governed by the Big Six, which is sort of the people with the biggest budgets, and I think that's a really big problem just because sort of I think we should increase pluralism within funding and also the government itself. Just because sort of what makes, say you run Honor Society isn't the same as what you run the Crimson with. What you run with Humans versus Zombies isn't the thing that you run with, say, WFIT. So I think we need to increase the amount of organizations in SGA, and I think that will help us be able to reform it.
I think just basically the terminology needs to be revisited because some of it in there is conflicting with each other, such as like Senate officer was in there a lot, where if you searched other terms like that, it wasn't matching up. I looked at it recently, and when you would search certain things, they didn't come up in a effective way. If you were trying to search for a general meeting or something like that, it wasn't worded as properly as I would like it. So that's what I'm doing.
I think in general it needs, I mean, I read it last night. I thought it was, as I understand it's being redone, but I think that, honestly, I wish I knew more about it. But it's something that I would definitely learn more about, trying to get this position. As a resident director, I get questions that I ask a lot that I do not know the answer to, and it is something that I would certainly like to find out about. So I want to be honest with you guys. I'm not trying to.
I would like to know what's a good example of something good or great that you've done for the student body?
Well, I currently work with the Quality of Life Department, and right now my running mate and I are actually working on a proposal to get one of those water bottle fillers in Clemente, along with just a regular, like the push part of it too, because it's kind of crazy that people go out there and work out and they obviously have their water bottles and they need to fill them up. So I think that's pretty great.
So I don't think I've personally made like some crazy contribution, or at least like I have no contribution sort of to them that's like equivalent. I guess the closest thing I have is just trying to run my honor society, but you know, that's sort of limited in scope.
The best. I took a lot of pride in helping to start the school's first community garden, Ethos, over in the residence quad. That was something that was said would never happen. Been tried before. We should never do it. It needs to go through so many loopholes and red tape. And we put together a committee that really was able to show that students, if they put their mind to it, can really do anything. And their voice is limitless. And getting that started and having something there that will be there hopefully for a long time to say that improved something, that made a difference, I think was probably one of my proudest moments.
Okay, let's do one more.
Are any of you guys planning to do anything to promote more engineering events or engineering focused activities? Because the thing is, I'm president of FIT IMAPS, and the reason a lot of people approach us because they want to work on cool stuff. They want to work on cool 3D printers. They want to work on go-karts, all that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of common theme I see reflected in a lot of students in my classes and my projects. I mean, this is an engineering university after all, and I don't mean to be myopic and exclude anyone from any other kinds of sciences. But the thing is, like, every single week, my SGA representative comes to me and says, "Yeah, don't worry, they're not doing anything that's related to us, so we don't have to worry about them." So, and I think that's pretty sad because I see a very dynamic team in front of me. and I don't want to see engineering students feel like this is just something for extracurricular activities. It's nothing to do with engineering.
That's definitely something that you can all take to our academic department, as well as if you want to do something cool for your organization. If you just completed a couple requirements, you can get funding from the SAFC. So I think that's really great that you brought that to our attention, because we want to be more inclusive and we want to make sure that everyone is getting the most out of their college experience. So we can definitely work with our academic department to do that for you.
So I never had anything like specifically in mind with promoting engineering, but one thing that I hinted at again with the Constitution is sort of reforming it so that way it could have more pluralism. So that way more engineers would be in control of, say, for example, funding, and also sort of have a greater voice than, say, like the Big Six in terms of funding.
So the thing that comes to mind with me with engineers and trying to help them on campus and like giving them more of a chance to show what they have and stuff is actually the Green Bill. I don't risk of me saying that. Because part of that went to funding campus projects for students. And could you imagine if a senior design team was able to get funding to see a rebuild of the residence club or a new parking garage or solar panels, and really show what their design can do and change the campus for good. I think that's something which is, collective, I try and see that through to the end, but I think that's a good way to help engineers to see and feel that what they've done can be managed.
Thank you to our vice president candidates. Okay, our first question for them is the pre-announced question that they got in advance, and the question is, collect your platform into 3 points that describe the direction you want to go in SGA.
So for me, I really want to start from a ground up approach. So SGA as of right now currently is a foundational, its foundation is strong enough for us as students to climb upon and actually have a voice heard. So SGA needs to be created as one united body. So that with senators, when they do feel like all they do is vote, as Tina said, I want them to feel like they actually have communication with the students. I want them to feel like they actually have a part that has weight and actually they have a duty to us as students in the student body. Secondly, I'd like to go ahead and build up from that foundation a proper way for you as students to come and propose problems and solutions for certain topics that come up. But ultimately, as you as students, if you want to do some of the work, if you want to go,
So my 3 main focuses is the first one would be increasing quality of life is sort of what I want to do the most. Because one of my major criticisms with the Green Bill when it was coming out was that it seems like, we were putting a new sail on a boat with a hole in it, basically. Because when you see like things like Evans Hall is closed down because like it's like not healthy to live in, that's kind of strange to me. And another thing is that I want student government to be more of a voice for the students. Because I think that with collective effort between like the student body, we can get what we want actually, instead of having sort of a very localized group of people. And then the third thing would be, is that right?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Third thing, smart implementation of bills.
Alright guys, so my 3 points would firstly be more student government transparency. As my running mate Tina has said plenty of times, there is a lack of information sent out, not only fiscal information with student government budgets as well as SAFC budgets being lacked, but also with minutes, press releases. Students should be made aware of what we're doing, so if they want to get involved or have concerns about what student government is doing for them, they can come to us. Secondly, community outreach, not only just in Melbourne, but in Brevard County as a whole. If the community is aware of what us as Florida Tech students are, who we are, how great we are, there will be more opportunities for Florida Tech students in the area for jobs or internships. And lastly would be more student opinion on policy implementation by first getting information and then by surveying, and we would like to hit more than a 15% student vote on those surveys.
questions and just
Yeah.
No,
we're good.
introduce yourselves if you haven't. Okay, next question. What is your first course of action if you are elected? Let's start there.
Sorry guys, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Bailey Keener. I'm a junior in forensic psychology with a minor in pre-law, and I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia. My first course of action would be to make SGA a more open environment, not only to the senators themselves so they feel free to vote against what the executive board wants, but for the students to come to us with issues like engineering organizations, engineering activities, engineering clubs, things like that, but also for issues they see, and not only in academics, but in quality of life as well. And though we do get some reports of that, it was hard for me as quality of life department head in SGA to come up with initiatives because though some students were coming up to me after meetings with great initiatives, I didn't get a lot of feedback. So I kind of had to go off of what I thought of campus, and I really want the student opinion run in SGA. I want it projected on our campus.
So my first course of action would try to be to get SGA as a mode of empowerment for students, because I think sort of the biggest problem with student government as a representative force is that students don't really have the sort of care to even sort of think, hey, maybe this should be something I can direct and the force that I can use it with. And so I think that with enough students working towards a common goal, we can get what we want, because the goals of the administration and the goals of the students are not necessarily the same thing. And so I think that we need to just focus more as a group and a whole.
Well, my name is Jason Kowski, and I'm an aerospace engineer or going for my aerospace engineering degree. And I actually was grown and raised in Melbourne, Florida, here. And firstly, while they're saying they want to do some stuff with representation, coming into the fall semester, I really want to create a tradition for FIT, because if you've ever been through FIT, you know that we really don't have any traditions or any culture that we hold on to after we leave the school. And if you look at alumni, our alumni don't really do much with us because they don't feel that Panther pride that we should have as a student body.
Our next question. Why should FIT have an SGA, and is it even worth it to students? Let's start in the middle.
So we need an SGA because, again, like I said, the students' needs are not the same thing as the administration needs. For example, to go back on what you said that why we don't have a culture, my first semester I was on academic probation with a 1.91 GPA, and I recovered to a 3.35, but I was still having the limits of academic probation until I got sort of done with that semester. The communication with administration has been abysmal throughout my entire sort of history here, and I think that's what we need to focus on. We need to work as students, as a voice, in order to get that culture we need.
I can take this one next. Fun fact, to be an accredited university, you actually have to have a student government association on your campus, so not only do we need one for that reasoning, but we also need one to, again, voice the students' opinions. That's something that probably shouldn't have been okay. And again, making SGA a more comforting environment for students to come to us. As stated in our Constitution, the president is supposed to assist students, to represent students, to support students in any issues that they have. And I think that that's the main purpose of SGA. So, for the students, by the students, and that's what we should be, and that's why we're needed on this campus, to represent the student opinion, not only on campus, but to faculty and to the president's office and board of trustees as well.
Ultimately, I feel that students are undermined by the SGA, but ultimately, if we didn't have an SGA, there wouldn't be any student relation with administration, because currently we're not seen as someone who is worthy of talking to. And so if SGA actually does what it's supposed to do, then we should be as like your lawyer. And when you go to administration with a problem, or you come as the tip of the spear for something that you want to make a solution for, we want to be there for you so that you can be the tip of the spear, so that you can make a solution to that problem without actually that problem being taken away by SGA and them just handling it themselves.
Next question. How will you hold SGA members accountable? How how will you handle members who are not doing their job? How will you hold SGA members accountable? How will you handle members who are not doing their job?
So currently, I feel that senators do not have feel really the weight of their duty. I know that in certain circumstances, they don't speak or represent you because they are worried about not becoming friends with another senator. So if they felt that duty and felt that call to actually speak, even though they may sacrifice some friends, then first and foremost, I want them to feel that weight. I want them to sign that dotted line and know that they are representing U.S. students. And so ultimately, if they do not fall in line, that will be something that we talk one-on-one with, and we'll be, hey, you signed this document, you said you represent, and you're not doing it. And then they'll be left to answer, and if their answer isn't enough, then they may let go.
So I'm like no stranger towards trying to put pressure on people who aren't doing things that they're supposed to. And I think with student government, there's enough students that I think sort of are angered by like certain things that if you're not doing your job, you could be easily replaced by someone who does care about things. Because if you're just trying to get into student government for a resume booster, you're just trying to seem like, oh, I want a leadership position because I think I'm a leader. Like that's, no. There's so many people that could do a better job if you're just not doing your work and you're not like actually trying to be a representative voice for the students.
As per the Code of Laws, it is the Vice President's responsibility to oversee senator officers, which I believe are committee heads. All of SGA's functionality pretty much starts with those committee heads. I'm Quality of Life committee head right now, and the communication between the president, it's called our steering meeting. President, vice president, treasurer, everyone, that's where we talk about where we're getting things done. It's the department head's responsibility to make sure that the senators under them are meeting with the people they're supposed to be to, sending emails they're supposed to be sending, things like that, and getting stuff done. So the executive board really needs to be communicating, and if they're not doing their job, we actually do have an attendance expectations document and stuff like that. They are removed from office. They get a 3-strike policy pretty much.
The next question, if you are not elected, are you still interested in being a part of student government? Let's start with you.
Absolutely. If not, Justice, I would like to be considered for one of the possible cabinet members that are being proposed in the new Code of Law changes, so press secretary, or athletic secretary, all kinds of things like that. I want to have a voice on campus. I want to project your all's voices on campus. I want to make sure rules are being followed, Justice, make sure the SGA Constitution is being followed. That was a big issue in the impeachment proceedings. Some people felt that our Constitution and code laws were not being followed, and I'd like to make sure that everything is done by the books, not only with the student body, with SGA as a whole. So I would love to stay involved in student government and be the voice of the student body.
So I guess I kind of answered this question like as previous sort of being here, but one thing that I think that would keep me involved in student government is that I'm probably going to be like the first one to speak out if like they try and do something that I think is just absolutely ridiculous, because I'm like no stranger to just basically criticizing the student government if like they try and like step outside boundaries. And I just think that I want to empower anyone who thinks that like the student government isn't working for them, that they should detract and they should try their hardest to basically have their voice be heard.
Ultimately, I've had experience with SGA in the past. I've tried to do things as a student, and ultimately I felt undermined. And so if I just became a student, I feel the same thing would just happen. So yeah, I would run for an SGA office because that's what I'd have to do, because under my administration, students would be properly represented, but without me, I wouldn't be properly represented as a student. And so ultimately, maybe a senator position or possibly PR, because I love to work with you guys.
This is our final question, and I'll read it twice. This semester, SGA sent out a student survey regarding the Green Bill to gather students' opinion on where they want their student activity plans to go. How do you think the system was executed, and would you plan on implementing more surveys for students in the future?
Are you referring to the Green Fund survey or the student services survey? There were two different
Student services. Yeah. I can ask the question again to be more clear. This semester, SGA sent out a student survey regarding the Green Bill or student services. to gather students' opinion on where they want their student activities, fund/green funds to go. How do you think this system is executed / would you plan on implementing more surveys for more students in the future?
Ultimately, I feel that it's kind of deplorable that with the student services problem, the fee and actually where it was going, it was actually not SGA that brought that up, it was actually from outside, from a student. And so when SGA actually approached that and sent out surveys, it just felt annoying. Personally, as a student, I didn't really understand what was going on, and I actually saw more memes than I saw actual questions and surveys being filled out. So ultimately, I don't think surveys are the answer. I think working one-on-one, senators and students, possibly, yeah, surveys are great, but ultimately I see a personal relationship with you guys as more valuable than you just clicking on.
Well, I think surveys are important because we actually do have to be representative if we're a representative government, though I do think that the survey for the budget was sort of abysmal in terms of execution, because in a perfect world, if this green fund bill is going to say take up 20% of the budget, you would cut 20% from basically all aspects, but you can't cut, say, things like turbo vote because there's a distinct amount of money that has to go to it and it's federally required. You can't really cut canvas because, we need that in order to function as an institution. And then say if the biggest thing was the big six, how are you going to cut up the big six? Are you going to do that evenly? Are certain organizations going to get a bigger cut? Who knows? We don't.
The biggest discrepancy with the student services fee issues, I guess you could say, was that the information was not sent out prior to students being made aware of it, which is a common occurrence in SGA currently. One of our platform's points is to get students more information, more transparency. With that transparency, students would have had the information knowing, oh, we're talking about reallocating student service fee money. Oh, this is what SAFC, some of you students don't know what SAFC is, but you use the money from it. So, students need to be made aware of what money goes where. You can't just take student opinion and just have them fight for everything. It's going to be, I want this because I'm in this all day long. But as we learned at our ASGA conference, surveying is the most important thing on campus. So student surveys are student opinions, and that's what matters. And more of that needs to be taken into account for the services fee allocation issues.
Now we'd like to open up questions from the audience. In the back.
So a lot of people can stand up and say, I'm worried. But what will all of you do to foster a situation, an environment for leadership help?
Start
I'll go. So one thing I want to promote is, again, solidarity, because I think sort of as a leader, you have to, know that you are not in charge of people. You are representing, you are trying to sort of get the common goal done. So I think, again, solidarity within SGA and solidarity within the student body is what I would try to promote in order to sort of foster leadership, not only with SGA, not only with myself, but just Florida Tech as a whole.
So, not to brag, I've taken a psychology of leadership class, no I'm kidding. But in that class I actually learned a lot about leadership through activities, hands-on activities, as well as, reading my textbook every now and then. But a leader is not about you do this, I need this on time, let's go. It's about possibly taking 6 to 8 hours of your week to make sure you're going to all your committee meetings to work with your committee heads, not above your committee heads, to make sure things get done. You're that helping hand, you're that leader that's there to help people, not to boss people around. You don't want to be someone that your committee heads and your senators are scared of because, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get this deadline done. You're going to be one of those. You want to be one of those leaders that your senators and your committee heads come to because I'm not going to get this done. Can you help me? You want to be that helping hand leader, not that dictatorship leader. And I think that's very important for an open environment in student government.
For me, I honestly believe that in my experience, I proposed a bike rack plan in Harris Village, and I don't know if you may have heard of it, but I led that charge for as long as it was, until it was given to SGA. And I felt like the tip of the spear. I was one of the most passionate people about it, and I felt left out. And I believe that if you guys come up with something like a proposal like I did, then you should be, if you're passionate about it, put it at the tip of the spear. And given the opportunity to have that leadership experience and that one-on-one with administration, with the senator, and proper representation in that, so you guys can have unique opportunities to really change the face of your campus and also learn how to become leaders. So.
Yeah. Personally, I was actually handed over that bike rack proposal, and I do apologize to Jace. I did kind of take it out of his hands and run with it because I wasn't used to a student helping me with things. Students never voice their opinions to me, and I wasn't sure how to implement that. So I think with this new SGA transition, it's important to work with students, and I do apologize for kind of running with that, but it was just what I was used to. So with this SGA change, it's important to keep those students working with SGA, and that's one big part of change is students standing right next to SGA the whole way through an initiative.
It's one of the reasons I'm here.
Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of this needs to get changed, that needs to get changed. But of course, that's always good, right? Change is good. I want each of you to say one thing that you like about SGA that you would never change, and that you think everyone else would also not change. Whoever.
I personally like our Table Thursday events, so even though we were told that we don't table a lot, we do try to table every Thursday, or once a month on Thursdays, and the students get free stuff from us, so like freebies, free water bottles, free luggage tags, we have those, stuff like that. That's one thing I like about SGA is that we give the student body gifts. I'd like to keep that.
I feel that the senators, and I haven't met all of them, I've met a few, and I think that genuinely most of them, and all of the ones that I've met, are very nice individuals, very heartfelt people. And Paul doesn't agree. But ultimately, like I said, Rodney Bowers. But I think that the senators and the people who make up the SGA currently are a very good part of SGA.
I think sort of the core sort of idea of the SGA is something I don't want to change because, again, it's a representative government. It's basically sort of like what Rodney Bowers represents is that we are represented as a group because sort of our needs aren't necessarily accounted for. And I think that the core principles of student government is what I sort of would never want changed. I don't want it to be sort of basically a committee like for like say 3 issues. I don't want it to be basically if it's not solar powered football, get out.
For the students' lives, right?
Yes.
So the 3 of you have talked about your strengths as leadership and your individual experiences which are unique. But what are your weaknesses and how do you plan to overcome them if you become our president? And how will you deal with that? Well, you guys are rising juniors, you're doing theses, some of you are RAs, but then people who are Ds work jobs.
Personally, one of my weaknesses is not only do I like to talk a lot, but I'm very bullheaded with what I do. When I stick to something, I want to see it through, even if it's not the greatest thing in the world or it can't happen. So I think my inability to let go of initiatives that can't work is going to be a little bit of an issue, but as president, you don't really push initiatives like you do as a quality or department head, as I am right now. You kind of oversee everyone. So with me not coming up with the initiatives, the committee heads coming up with the initiatives, I think that as a supervisor, I'll do a lot better. So yeah, and actually, last year I had 5 positions in my sorority, but this year I took none because I wanted to make SGA my main focus. I was planned on running since last fall, so.
One of my weaknesses, which I went to CAPS to sort of try and work on, it's that I sort of have this cognitive distortion where I think in terms of all or nothing. So when it comes to, say, my personal failures and sort of basically if I can't get something implemented, I internalize the failure and it sort of just has hindered my motivations. But I have worked on it and I've basically been able to sort of see things in moderation because it's basically every effort you put has small gains, and basically every effort we put into SGA does have small gains, even if it seems like basically SGA has completely gone off the rail.
And well, if you know me, you know I like to talk a lot. And one of the biggest challenges, and I welcome this challenge so much, was really listening. And that in the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, since I've been serious, about a month or more, I've been serious about this. I've really gotten to listen to a lot of you guys and really hear what you guys feel about this campus and what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. And so ultimately, like, I just need to keep going on that goal and really learn how to listen to you guys and allow your opinions to really go into a unifying representation that the president is supposed to be.
So no matter how good of a leader you are or how well you promote SGA or you rise to the top, you're always going to get criticism. That's what anything that's political, you're always going to get criticism. How are you guys going to deal with that criticism, whether it be at meetings or talking to your student body through social media or email lists and all of that? How are you going to deal with that criticism?
I'm totally good at criticism of open arms because ultimately I think that everyone, even if like one person may think they're really, really right, if someone has a criticism towards that, they're not crazy. They have some reason behind that. So if we ultimately, with empathy, have that gain their understanding of why they're criticizing you, why they think differently from you, then you can have a well-rounded thought and a well-rounded idea in that represents both of you equally. And so ultimately, I welcome with open arms, and I think that if someone had a criticism on me, like even for tonight, I want to sit down with them across and just say,
Yeah, that's sort of the basis of criticism, is basically to try and sort of shape things to basically a perspective that is more encompassing than, say, the implementation of some things might be. So, for example, I would, as Jace would say, welcome criticism, because I'd rather have voices that distract me than silence, because if no one's speaking up, if no one's doing anything, then how do you know you're doing your job?
So we did face a lot of criticism, not only with the Green Fund bill, but with the impeachment processes. And the way we dealt with that, which I agree with, is to kind of just say, I'm sorry, like if you want to talk to us, come to our office hours, but to extend on that. Ask people, come to our meetings, we'll talk to you about why we did what we did. Let us hear your point. Oh, that makes sense, like we're sorry. Get their side of view, tell them your side of view, and try to work it out the best you can. But really, at the end of the day, we were elected to these positions, so you just have to keep your head up and know that you're representing the student body the best you can, to the best of our abilities. Okay, thank you.
So I'm on Public Relations Committee right now, and due to a problem that we had with answering surveys, we wound up sending out a survey about the Green Fund on Canvas. It was a one-time only thing, but it's how we got the greatest feedback we've ever gotten from the student body. Being the voice of the students, how do you plan on increasing student feedback, knowing that we currently have forms of channels on all different types of social media?
So actually at our ASGA conference in Washington, D.C., we learned, again, that surveying is the best way to reach the student body. They said to aim for at least 10% of population, which would be 360 students, which we actually got on the Green Fund bill vote. But that was at least. We need to aim above that. And I think, personally, you shouldn't stop surveying until you hit 15, 20, 25% survey marks of the student body. If it's time sensitive, do the best you can. Personally, we learned also that in-person surveying is better than online surveying. So as Zach said previously, send people out in our SGA polos. People know, look for that Crimson Polo to tell you their opinion on things, to voice their issues to you. You need to get people out there to get 15, 20, 25% student opinions on surveys.
So again, with surveys, I think the idea is smarter implementation, because at the end of the day, even though we're student government, we're still students. You see, sort of the criticism. You're basically with people every day who are around you. So simply just reaching out to the people, your peers, talking in class, actually knowing other people's perspectives, your detractors, your supporters, everything, and then encompassing it into a smart implementation of surveys, design, and what have you. That's what you need, is basically not to say that student government is a class above students, but it is just students itself.
So to answer your question, so ultimately, I want to put boots on the ground. I believe that the Senate is being underutilized as a representative body. I think that you guys, if you actually had locations or places that you guys would assign yourselves to, or students that you assign yourselves to represent, and actually go and talk to them verbally and see what they think, and actually go on the ground. We're not, you hear student body, but do you actually think of a body? Do you actually think of the hands and feet being the senators? Do you actually think of the voice being the executive board? And do you actually see the students coming together and seeing those red polos and actually recognizing them. Because I think that with boots on the ground, with you guys going around, like she had said, we will be able to actually get our voice out and get our name out so students can hear us and see us and know who we are.
Hi, I think I'm going to speak on behalf of graduate students. I know that graduate students are not involved in SGA, or at least not as many. We also have needs, of course. They might be different from undergraduates, but do you have any plans on how to either recruit graduate students, and if so, then?
One of the reasons that I selected Zach as my vice president is his speciality as a graduate student, and his not only his knowledge and his experience at FIT, but his reach towards that group of people. So ultimately, I am really looking at him as like a mentor in that. And I know that I'm the president, he's vice president, but he's older than me, and he has a lot more knowledge than me, and I recognize that. And then that we will work together as a team that's equal, and then that he would properly represent your student body.
I think sort of the key thing in order to get graduates involved in the student government is that I think there's kind of like a stigma involved with kind of getting involved in things outside of graduate studies because, you know, it's sort of like this is my professional work, like I'm basically beyond sort of the government, the student government clubs and what have you. And that I think that sort of basically saying, you know, regardless of if you're graduate or undergraduate, you're still a student and your needs can be met if you basically sort of take the time to implement yourself in here, or at least try your best to basically talk to someone in government. That I think that can help a long distance.
I actually saw this as an issue as well. I went to talk to a graduate student about my campaign, and he looked at me and said, "Can I even vote in this?" They don't feel like they have a voice, and that is a big issue. And I think, starting with that, I'm in a sorority, I'm an Alpha Phi. We have graduate students, we have a couple graduate students, we have people that have graduated from Alpha Phi and gone on. You talk to the graduate students you know, you give them surveys, you tell them to hand this out, you go where graduate students go. You go to the graduate students classes, ask professors, can I take a second of your time to hand this out? I mean, it's really about, again, boots on the ground, those red polos. Graduate students also need to be made aware that they do have a voice on this campus, and I did see that as an issue while campaigning this last week.
Hi, I know you guys talk a lot about like representing student voting and all that, and I know the school emphasizes a lot on the fact that you have like a diverse body of students from different countries. But I want to ask, the issue with the International Student Office, they've really been slacking in terms of like helping the students. I've talked to other like international students from like across like Asia and other countries, and they had the same issue with them. I personally had an issue where I was stuck in immigration, and the International Student Office made a mistake and said I had graduated, and then I was like a junior. And immigration called them and asked them like, you know, can you vouch for this person? And they literally said no. I had to like log in on Canvas, go and like pause to show them I'm actually registered this person and have all these issues. I came in, I managed to like basically cry my way through it and like came into the country, and I had to like sort that out. And I had spoke to other like students, and they said they had the same issue of having issues with like international students whose like governments make it difficult sending like school fees like across, and then having them like deregister for classes and losing status and stuff like that. So I'm just want to ask, like, how do you guys like plan on actually helping like international students, because we have issues with getting jobs, we have issues with things like that, and this like adequate, like I would say, is actually like crap. Like you go to other schools, they give like students these stuff like, you know, jobs they could apply for, they actually take international students and things like that. So I want to know like how you're gonna help international students specifically, because we do all this international festival and stuff like that, but like to be honest, that doesn't really affect me. Like, yeah, we come, how are you gonna help me get a job and stay in the country?
Joseph? Well, I personally have talked to a representative of India from that department, and she expressed like a great, like, vibrant attitude towards you guys. And so it concerns me that their actions may not follow up with their attitude. And so personally, I believe that talking to them ultimately will get down to the bottom of the problem. And so if we figure out what's going on in there, then we can solve, like, I personally don't know what's the problem with that, like what's actually the root of that. But ultimately, I think that there have been problems in the past, and since you guys are a very large portion of our campus and also make us very, very unique, and it's such a blessing to have you guys here, we should also, in actually reforming SGA and creating it to better represent our government. I think that we want to give you guys your first impression of America will not be that. We want to give you guys first impression of America as land of the free, the land where you can do anything you want if you want to. You believe in you.
So one thing that I've actually noticed is that I had a peer who basically wasn't able to register for classes this semester, and he's from Nigeria. And by the time he was able to register, there was 2 days to make the payment, and then he was deregistered, so we had to go back to Nigeria. So one thing that I think is we need to put pressure on administration, because the values of, say, the international students and students as a whole are not represented within administration, because they just sort of see just numbers on paper. If we, as a collective, say that, hey, what you are doing is disgusting, your inability to act, you're basically saying, like, we have to say to them that there is precedent. Like, you need to help these students. They have special sort of needs outside of what is like the standard student. And so I think if we advocate as a collective, awesome.
My running mate and I actually have a very close friend that's currently stuck in Venezuela, almost the same issue. My best friend's from Turkey, and I fear that she won't be able to get back in the country every time she goes back home because of issues like you're having with not the people at the airport, not customs, but our offices here. And with the student services fee, kind of talking about it, a little bit of that goes to international's office, international students office. I'm so sorry. And I think what this issue is going to bring is some evaluations of departments that are getting money from this fee. Not only Greek Life, not only student services, student life office, but your office as well. They need to be looked over. What are you doing with this $110,000 that you get? Are you being there for our international students? You make up such a diverse part of this population. I love the International Festival, and I want to see that you guys flourish here at Florida Tech.
So the SGA Constitution says that the student government president is the head of the student body. So hoping that you guys are not taking this lightly and there's some research into what you're joining. So my question is to all of you, are you familiar with the Constitution and the Code of Laws of SGA? And if yes, what changes will be made, if any?
I'm very familiar, actually. We're going over Code of Law changes right now to make sure it matches the Constitution because there are actually discrepancies in it. I would change it, first of all, so that those two documents match, but secondly, I would change it to add a little bit more cabinet positions so that we don't have issues with communications with students, so that we have maybe an international secretary that can deal with a lot of our international student issues that they're having, to have a person for academics, or not academics, I'm sorry, for athletics, things like that, so that we can deal with different issues for different people who are specialized in those issues, which is kind of what we're proposing in the Code of Laws right now, and I think that's a very good change, and I want to see that go through so that if elected president, I can work with that Code of Laws, and so that I can amend the Constitution a little bit to match up with it as well.
In section 1.3 of the Code of Laws, I think that the vice president's roles should be reevaluated and be situated that it definitely puts the weight that we're definitely going to be putting on the senators as well and having them sign that dotted line. Because I think that all the roles, including 1.4 of the treasurer, should be very just detailed and so that they know what they're getting into. Because this is not, a 60,000 student school, this is 5,000, so we really need to play our parts to properly represent you guys, because we can be one big family. We're not, 60,000 strong. We got 5,000 family members in here, so.
Can you elaborate on what 1.3 and 1.4 are? Because probably only the Chief Justice knows what those are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
1.3, it's labeled vice presidency. 1.4 is treasurer, and then they go 1.3, 1.1, 1.2, and then they list exactly what they do. And I think that we should add more, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Yes. That checks out. Healing
Checks out.
So I'm aware of the Constitution because at first when I applied for basically running the two positions that I am, I was said that I did not make the candidacy requirements because I didn't make two specific meetings. And so I basically read through that entire thing to try and like sort of figure out what's going on. Why is it that, you know, it says 2 general meetings, 2 Senate meetings within an academic year. Why can't I? So I basically reviewed the entire thing. And again, I said that I want to change student funding away from the big 6. And the one group that I think should be in like charge of that would be like the Association of Treasurers, because you see a pluralism within that. Because sort of there's treasurers within like international students. There's clubs for honor societies, recreational, and all that. Because I think that, you know, just because you have people with big budgets does not mean they're good at
Or
school.
that's SGA, one more constitution for the world.
I don't know specifically what other change within that.
Which is a fair answer.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions from the audience?
Don't remind me now because otherwise I'll forget it. I've seen a lot of misinformation and incomplete information spread this year and in the years that I've been in Florida Tech surrounding a number of issues through both action and word of mouth. And I want to know how you as president would assure the quality and accuracy of the information that you and your SGA operate with.
We also saw that as an issue, not only with the Green Fund bill, but with the, also, as we saw the same thing as you, student services, fee surveys, and allocations. So senators were saying different things about the Green Fund bill, and they were saying this, and they were saying this, and then they got an email that said this, and people were also coming to me with those concerns as well. And again, that's misinformation to the student body, and some students, hey, you might not check your email. There's all of the senators, the justices, the department heads, and the executive board of SGA need to be on the same page. So before we send emails to the student body, Graham just sent me and say, this is what this is, this is what this is. Don't tell anything the wrong information, anybody the wrong information. Senators need to have the right information before the student body gets the right information so that someone from the student body can go up to a senator and say, hey, I got this, can you elaborate on it? So they have the right answers to give the student body. So it all starts with the communication within the Senate and the justices and the department heads as well as the executive board. It's that communication error within SGA that goes to external.
We definitely hope like that SGA is getting proper information before they're releasing it, and that they won't be doing it in the administration. But ultimately, as you guys know, that emails are not the most effective way for you guys to get information. But as for different ways that we could reach out, there's been an idea that's been thrown around with the student portal. Every time you guys log in, you guys see this login screen, and you just type it again. If we actually put things on that student portal, you'd see that every time you log in. And you guys actually get to see more things that are going on, more issues, maybe even a link to click that would allow you to go to documents that under my administration, we would make it very clear what projects we're working on and have completed so that you guys don't know out of the blue, oh, we just completed a project, where'd that come from? Because I know as a student, I was in the dark for some things. So.
I think sort of the main problem with SGA in terms of spreading information is that they don't sort of have like a holistic like idea of what they have and sort of sending it out. Because say for example they want to talk about one thing in one email, it's going to take 5 emails for them to go because you just get a reply like, oh, we forgot this. Oh, this wasn't added. Oh, you know, so now people have questions. So because like the fact that they're basically going to have to decipher through like say 7 emails to figure out like one thing, is kind of like where people get confused because they only probably read one and then they're like, oh, I have a strong feeling about this, so I'm not gonna, you know, rummage through like to try and like piece together what I should already have.
One more question if anyone would like to ask them.
Go with Paul and then
So, as you guys know, part of the SGA process is we all gain new position key centers and we transition. But personally, I faced as a committee head, I transitioned, but even though I was given a little bit of period meeting from the other committee heads, we started in the fall and we were like, what are we doing again? How are we doing this? how can we improve transition not only from the president, but all the way to center, so that we don't just start to fall, scratching our heads, so we hit the ground running?
One of the things that I previously mentioned was really having a very specific guidelines for senators, and also like every year I want you guys to sign a dotted line saying you guys are going to be here for this and know the weight of what you're doing. And so ultimately you guys are going to get some sort of packet or some sort of document that will state exactly what you're going to do and what we're going to walk into, because one of the problems with previous administration going to the next administration is continuity, and there's a lot of holes in that. And so I think that if we had one singular document that all the presidents coming and going agree on, we can use that as a means to not only inform you guys, but also prepare for the semesters.
I personally have an experience with sort of like a poor transition, because when I sort of took position as president of Kappa Theta Epsilon, the president graduated, and all I got for like my roles was like a 10-minute talk at the final meeting, which was weeks before like our next meeting. So I think the main idea would be, as soon as elections happen, we should be able to like work with transitions. We should share our knowledge as much as we can before this happens, and to localize sort of that information. Say, for example, like online, that, oh, this is like what this position requires. This is how student government ought to be, because, you know, there's a lot of people who are, like, have a gap between summer and fall, and I don't think people should have the responsibility to retain information like over the course of months.
So we actually do already have those little bit of transition packets. In previous years, they've been really crappy. I can attest to that. I've seen them in our SGA drive. This year, our president, Becca, has actually come up with an insanely great template for our transition documents. Personally, Paul, I've gone over yours. It's stunning. It's like 20-something pages. It's great. It's in detail. You leave little personal messages here and there, and I'm trying to make mine the same way. I want the committee head to come after me to know exactly what they're doing and to help the senators under them. Same thing with president. I've gone over everyone's that's in the drive so far. Academics, PR, everyone's transition documents, and they're better than previous years. So I think that this year, with these transition documents that we have now, thanks to Becca, things are going to be a lot better.
So throughout the course of just this debate tonight, I've heard issues about international student office, engineering events, grad students, services fee, being misinformed, and I hear you guys just go, yeah, great, that's something we can definitely work on, and that's something we definitely want to help improve for the student body. But what's your actual plan to take this information that you have? Because as president, as part of SGA, you get a lot of ideas, you get a lot of information from it, you get a lot of complaints. So what are you going to actually do to make sure you're not just like, yes, we'll definitely work on that, somebody work on that, and actually get involved and make sure that these issues that the students have are being voiced and are being taken seriously?
So with the student activities issues, the international student office issues, things like that, I want to have everyone who's head of the departments that the student services fee gets broken down into to meet and talk about where they're losing money. If they're all filled up on the student trips to go to Disney and stuff like that, where are we losing money? Where are we spending money to fix
These
that?
specific issues like in general, and you're throwing issues at me.
Oh, when you're stressed, okay.
Yeah, like these were just ones I heard. In general, when students throw issues at me, like a bike rack problem, or just in general things that get thrown at you.
I think that goes to more communication steering, multiple steering meetings. I think that goes to executive board members attending committee meetings, things like that. More communication, I guess, is the biggest thing with that. But and also more involvement from important people on campus. Thanks for Dean Bowers for hanging out with us, doing his thing. But Dr. McKay needs more involvement in student government. Monica Below could help academics department out a whole lot. Our Florida Tech PR department can help our PR department a lot. It's working with faculty as well as communication within SGA.
I feel like the first step to get into that is actually allow us to have a serious presence on campus. I feel like even as students may be undermined by administration, we as SGA are also undermined. And so if we also do things that get administrative attention and actually, to answer your question specifically, I did list a few things with the portal and some of the things that were specific to those problems, but ultimately I think that if we come together with representatives, as I'm not familiar with exactly what those meetings are, but people who are representing the campus in any way, whether it be senators or just students having conversations with me or my vice president or anyone within this SGA body, I think that we could come down to the solution to the problem a lot quicker when we get the student involvement, when we actually reach out to the students as the hands and feet of the student body. That is, yes, you.
So I want to preface by saying that you're absolutely right to call us out for sort of being yes men, because that's not a great quality you can have as a leader. So I think the first thing to get actual issues done is to sort of basically make a valuable judgment of like, are these issues reasonable and are they pressing? And if, in order to get like them done, you need to sort of properly implement where they go. For example, if it's an issue with, say, international students, we have to go like, hey, like sort of PR or secretary or someone whose role is as close as possible to the issue. You need to like sort of assign, so that way it's not just sort of like, oh, can someone just volunteer to do this?
Yeah, but just kind of going on top of that, like me as a student, I came in and going into history for that argument, and my experience was I got like 6 people CC'd to an email. I got like 4 people thrown into a group chat, and I had no idea who to talk to. I didn't even know who the head of Quality Life was at that time. I just was like, oh, there's like 5 people who say they're senators, and ultimately I didn't really feel prepped in the process that I went through. And I feel that along the lines of what he's saying, that senators, like within the Quality Life Committee, instead of doing all the dirty work of getting these problems solved, if there's a student who wants that done, like for example, I want bike racks, if someone wants to water in Clemente, like nice water runs in Clemente, then they should be assigned a Quality Life member who can aid them in that as their mentor, just like I was mentored during my process a little bit. By someone else, not SGA.
Thank you to the individual candidates for their And then I'll just read over real quickly the mission statement of this year, just to remind you of. While we're here, keep in mind when casting your votes, and because I forgot to do it at the beginning. So, Florida Tech's SGA intends to promote cooperation among students, faculty, and staff, and administration of the university. SGA is here to protect and advocate the rights of the student body of this university. We are the official channel through which the opinions and desires of the student body may be expressed and to improve the academic, physical, and social welfare of the student body. The purpose, as quoted from the SGA Constitution, we, the members of the student body of Florida Tech, desiring to provide an effective and responsive organization for students, establish a student government whose purposes are to improve student physical, social, and cultural welfare, to represent the student perspectives of campus life, to promote full cooperation between students, faculty, and administration, to promote official channels through which students' opinions may be expressed, to promote students' rights and responsibilities, to promote academic freedom and academic responsibilities, to foster awareness of the students' position in the campus, local, state, national, and international communities, and to provide training and experience in responsible leadership and community involvement. Thank you guys for letting us mediate tonight, and let's give a round of applause to all the people that came.